Have you ever taken advantage of somebody? Have you ever felt taken advantage of? Can you be Christian and capitalist? You see, there's something about this capitalist society that we live in the West that kind of encourages this kind of taking advantage of other people. And ideally, in that society, you would be making goods and services for people that they need and want, and they would buy them. But increasingly, there's this pressure to take advantage in order to compete, to win. And is that compatible? Is that part of our Christian journey? Well, the Good Samaritan has some lessons for us, and that's what we're talking about this week on the live show.
Kindred UMC live show features adults discussing adult topics, occasionally with adult language. It may not be suitable for young viewers. Please use discretion before watching.
Hello all, welcome once again to the Kindred UMC pre-recorded live show, coming to you not live, but pre-recorded from my front room, aka Kindred Studio A. My name is Chris Hayden. I am the pastor at Kindred UMC.
Hi, I'm Courtney Young. I'm the director of... I'm not anymore. I'm the lay leader at Kindred UMC.
Actually, you're the lay delegate.
Lay delegate, and I'm back.
Delegate. And hello, back from the co-pilot seat. It's Preston, back being as Coco as possible.
Oh, that's a new
Coco Van. Coco Van.
Look at you with the new intro.
Just today.
We are continuing our slightly interrupted, by the time this is released, interrupted live show series, because we'll have our 2nd of July independent. You should go watch our 2nd of July live show, where we talk about, can you be Christian and patriot at the same time? Does patriotism affect Christianity? Does Christianity affect patriotism? That's what we'll be talking about. You should go check it out.
That'll be an interesting
America. But now we are continuing our series on the parable of the Good Samaritan, and we're taking a slightly different angle on it. We are looking at the different characters in that parable and what they have to teach us, and we're pairing that with other scriptures in the all of the holy scriptures that we have here. And so last time, not last week, but last time, we looked at the actual victim of the robbery, the Good Samaritan, or not the Good Samaritan, but the guy who gets robbed, that the Good Samaritan rescues. And we talked about like downtrodden, and sometimes things happen. And this week, I want us to take a look at the robbers. So I'm not going to read the... it's in Luke, it's chapter 10, it's verses 25 through, and basically the story of the Good Samaritan goes like this. Some lawyer comes up to Jesus and he's like, what's the most important law? And Jesus says, what do you think? And he says, love God, love your neighbor. And then the guy's like, yeah, but who's your neighbor? And then Jesus is like, let me tell you a story. There's a guy who's going from north to south. He had to pass through Samaria. He gets beaten, robbed, left for dead. A priest comes by, crosses the street so he doesn't have to talk to him. A Levite comes by who is also kind of a priestly caste or class, and across the street so he doesn't have to talk to him. And a Samaritan, who are the bad guys. And if you don't know why the Samaritans are bad guys, go look at the last week. Uh-oh, that's my phone ringing. It's just going to ring till it stops. So go and look at the first one in this series, and I'll tell you why Samaritans are considered the bad guys. But the Samaritan of all people is the one who actually helps our hero or our victim, and he takes him to an inn, and he puts up his own money and says, no matter what, take care of this guy. And then Jesus says, who do you think the neighbor was? So that's the story of the Good Samaritan. We're going to pair that this week with a scripture from Deuteronomy. And I want you to keep in mind, we're looking at it from the aspect of the robbers. What does it mean for us to identify with the robbers in this story? This is Deuteronomy Chapter 25, verses 13 through, I believe, 16. And it goes like this. You shall not have in your bag 2 kinds of weights, large and small. You shall not have in your house 2 kinds of measures, large and small. You shall have only a full and honest weight. You shall have only a full and honest measure, so that your days may be long in the land of the Lord your God, that the Lord your God is giving you. For all who do such things, all who act dishonestly are abhorrent to the Lord your God. So this is a law about having only one kind of measuring cup and only one kind of weight. What make you of this?
I was going to say, how doth you fare?
Yes. What make you of this? Of these perturbing words?
I don't know if I have a measuring cup that doesn't match the set. Besides, like the gold, Yeah, my gold measuring, utensil.
You have a gold measuring utensil?
No, I meant to say glass, but it's all G's. It's all G's.
It's all G's.
Yeah, that doesn't match anything, obviously, because it's like a big one. But all the little like green or blue or like plastic ones, they have like, I'm not measuring an eighth of a teaspoon out of a cup. So you got to have the little tiny ones that, it doesn't make sense. I don't know, how does that?
So this goes back to the idea that there are things in the Israelite society that are required of them for charitable reasons. So, for example, farmers were not allowed to harvest their entire fields. They would have to leave portions. Likewise, when you're bringing an offering to the temple, you would have to measure out a certain amount of whatever. And this is about, don't have like a big one and a small one. This is about people who had a lot of possessions who were required to share that with other people by law, kind of being like, oh, pull out the small measuring cup for this. And like, oh yeah, no, that's 3 cups. Are you sure? It looks like 2 cups. No, that's 3 cups. Like that's what was going on. And so this is a law that says like, do not have multiple sizes of cup. Do not have multiple weights of 1 pound. Have everything be the same and be honest and just. So this is ultimately about people in power who have wealth, whether or not they're going to abide by the law and share what they've got, or whether or not they're going to take advantage of people who don't have wealth. And like that's what this Deuteronomy law is about, and that's kind of what I see. Because like, if we're trying to identify with the robbers, I mean, have you ever robbed anyone?
No.
Yeah, me neither.
No, never. Never in my life.
I don't believe you. I don't know why. I don't like the way you're saying that.
Possessions that rightfully belonged to me.
I mean, like maybe in like middle school, like maybe I don't know, like, but and maybe when I was like in middle school, like shoplifting. That's what comes up for me.
I'm trying to think of things now that I have that might not be mine. Like I kept, and I'm a hoarder, I've just kept through like 6th grade. I have
Risk Lord of the Rings right over there on the shelf. And that belongs to Garrett, my friend Garrett, whose last name I shan't say, so I don't have to edit it. But that belongs to him. And I still have it because he left it at my house, and we've moved several times now, and it's never going back to him.
Are you calling it borrowed then?
I've told him. He knows I have it. Anyway, but yeah, people haven't, but there is something about robbery in our society, in our particular, like, especially in the West. And now don't get me wrong, I actually am very patriotic. I believe pretty strongly in capitalism and democracy. However, it doesn't come without its demons. And like the demonic side of the capitalism is this tendency for us to lean as a culture into the idea that like, oh, you dummy, you're willing to pay for it, I'm willing to sell you.
There will be loopholes.
Yeah.
And people will capitalize.
Yeah. So I want to ask the question: when have you? There's one question. There's two questions that's in one question, and one of them is if you're a coward, and one of them is if you're really brave. Are you ready for the questions?
Yeah.
All right. When have you been taken advantage of? That's if you're a coward. And if you're a really brave boy or girl, then you get to answer the question, when have you taken advantage of someone else?
You're in seat number 2, man.
I'm thinking. I've been like trying to think about this all day.
I have a quick one if you want to think.
Yeah, go.
So said it a few times. I like to preface it because it's kind of horrible in my life, but having a long relationship where I was, verbally abused and not recognizing it because I'm the man in the relationship and I'm supposed to be Mr. Stronghead and nothing's supposed to affect me. Having a partner that was consistently verbally beating me down and hiding it from our parents and letting them know that everything's good, okay, until parents see text messages that aren't really that nice, and then finally see a fight, a one-sided fight that happens. It's not the best looking and she has to apologize, blah, 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 blah. Being taken advantage of, boosted up as if I'm this great boyfriend figure, and then just cut down as soon as I'm blown up. So very taken advantage of in a loving, unloving manner is fun.
I think the thing that comes up for me, and the interesting thing about this example is I don't think it was like intentional or like mean-hearted or mean-spirited. And like I have lots of examples I can think of where I've been taken advantage of and it was not that, but this one I don't think was an intentional, anyway. So when I was 13, we would have to go up to my dad's for the summer, and me and all my siblings would have to go up there, and every time before we would get on the plane, my mom would say something like, your dad can't be the parent, so you have to be the parent. And that felt like I was being taken advantage of a little bit because I was a 13-year-old being put into a role of, you have to be a parent, you have to parent your siblings, you have to look after them. And I don't think she meant it she meant to take advantage of me or anything like that. She doesn't know, but also I don't feel like it's fair to put that on a 13-year-old.
Yeah, I would agree. 13-year-olds should not be parents. And if you are a 13-year-old parent,
marry,
get help. The people should help you and adults should help you. Yeah, I also one of my go-to taken advantage of is my HOA at my first house nice. I owned. They through some I don't know what, but I was on automatic pay. They stopped taking my automatic pay, and I didn't get any communication about the fact that I was behind. And long story short, this escalated and just went into, I ended up in court, and it cost me thousands and thousands of dollars. And it was just people in power taking advantage of somebody who just didn't know what he was doing, and it was rough, and to the tunes of thousands of dollars.
Sounds advantageous.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I want us to talk a little bit about places where we have actually privileged from, taken advantage of. Because the real challenge here, because it's very easy for people to identify places where they have been taken advantage of.
Yeah.
But the real challenge, I think, of this particular live show is to get us into a place where we actually take a look at where have we used, and maybe this language will help, where have we used privilege? Where have we used things that we didn't earn in order to get a leg up on other, so here's the example that comes up in my mind. So when I was at the church I worked at before, and I want you to think of yours, I want you to try and think of sometimes in your life while I share this example. When I was working at a church before I was an ordained person, I was just a lay person. I was a worship director, and it was not my intention to take advantage. That was not in my heart. But what happened was the pastor was moving from that church. I was the worship director. I was the other face on stage every week. And I got a job offer from somewhere else. And I was genuinely excited about it. It sounded like a good opportunity. And the pastor was moving, so it felt right, like the right time and all that. And I brought that information to my pastor. I was like, hey, listen, I want to do this above board. here's what's going on. I'm looking at and that church was like, you can't leave. We need you. You can't leave. And I very much took that as, well, if you want me to stay, here's what it would take. And they basically met that. And I struggle with whether and how ethical that was. I did not feel bad about what I was asking because I was leaving it at their feet. I was going like, hey, listen, it was an honest, this is what it will take for me to live in this area. This is what it will take. But I also knew that it wasn't a good thing for them. I was not worth what they were willing to pay me. And they agreed to pay me that. And I took it.
Yeah, but with you positively refusing, like there's someone else offering.
I would say it also blew up in my face. Like a year or two later, it really backfired on me because I think what I didn't know I was doing this, but I think what I was inadvertently doing was trying to sell them this idea that if you keep me on, everything's going to be fine. And that's what they bought. And that was not true. And I knew it was, and I don't have the potential or the power to in any way make sure everything's fine as the worship director. Like, I just do not have that ability. And I think that's what they bought from me. And I think there was a thing inside of me that kind of knew that and knew it wasn't true. And I still struggle with that. I'm still not sure about the ethics. And like, I mean, maybe that's a cop-out because that's like an in-betweeny one. And I'm not sharing any time where I've taken it. But like, there is something about most people don't go around taking advantage of other people. Most people have moments like that, where it's kind of this gray area. So I don't know. Does that bring up anything for you? Do you have any gray areas in your life where you're like, I don't know about that?
I have one a lot of people can relate to, so this is kind of nice and well, it's not nice, it's actually terrible. But when you see someone and it's in a perfect time of the day of your life where you're in a rut and you feel like everyone's against you, everyone hates you, you're hot, it's terrible, everything's terrible, and then Mr. Homeless Guy walks up to the car and your windows are up and your doors are locked and the green light hits and you can happily pass knowing that's not me on the street. Or see someone else in a rut that they don't have enough money for their groceries. It's a shame, but I'm walking out the door. So
yeah,
you have that little like, what are the spies? What are the spies called? The little black and white mouse spies that are always
Spy versus Spy?
Spy versus Spy.
Yeah.
And one always gets the what, so you always have to like, you get away with it type of feeling. It's taking advantage is what it is, and it's using someone else's, it's just how our brains work. Someone else's down makes our ups
Well,
better.
I think there's something about Western, I think that's how Western brains work. Because one of the things we see, and don't get me wrong, again, like I'm pretty patriotic when it comes to U.S. and Western civil. Like, I think there's a lot of really wonderful greatness there, and also it comes with just a whole bag of garbage.
Yeah,
it's the Winston Churchill. Like, it's the best form of government that's ever been created, or it's the worst form of government that's ever been created, except for all the other ones.
Yeah, and related to my thing, it's. You could look at it at a broader scale and see another country that's not doing so well, like a Ukraine or a Syria or anything around Saudi Arabia that's not Saudi Arabia, and say, I'm glad we're in America.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, there's something to that. And we'll talk a little bit more about that.
It's also not saying I don't care about that stuff or homeless people, but there's moments where your brain just...
There's something about capitalism that encourages people to lean into taking advantage, and I must say, as much as I think capitalism and democracy have led to wonderful things, and also I am like called to say there is
socialism and communism.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, no.
But there's something in the gospel that calls us to something else that is inherently opposed to that constant competition, constant take advantage of.
That's what I meant. What did you guys think I meant?
Oh, it sounded like you were saying, like, yeah, socialism and communism. I thought you were making a joke about, like, yeah, socialism, communism, awesome.
No, that they're preached as these non-advantageous. and everybody's on the same.
Everybody's
on the same place. And then you're both are like, I don't think so. I'm like, oh, okay, never mind.
No. I'm with you. That's what you're going for. I'm with you.
Oops.
The idea that.
But it's not just saying capitalism is like this. It's people that are involved with these societies or societal like norm things.
Yeah, well, there's something about the human condition. And there's something about capitalism that kind of accepts the reality.
And capitalizes on
it just accept, like, hey man, you can have 100 people and like 98 of them are nice people, and if 2 of them are just real sociopaths, like those 2 are going to rise to the top. So let's just start from that place. And that's kind of what capitalism is. Let's just start from that place.
That's why we have railroads and electricity and
also, like, crazy. Again, I have to, like, as the preacher, as the called one, like, I have to acknowledge that there is something in the gospel, there's something in the message of the kingdom of heaven that is calling society to a different place. That's calling us toward perfection, even when we don't believe in that perfection. And that's a John Wesley thing. John Wesley is the father of the Methodist Church. John Wesley's theology was based on the idea that you could be perfected in this life. That by the grace of God, if you actually cooperate with what God's doing, you can achieve Christ-like perfection on this side of heaven. Like, you can be in this world perfect. And it doesn't always happen, but it can. And that, like, part of what drives us forward is this belief that is a possibility. And it's not a possibility through human effort, but a possibility through cooperating with the grace of God. And it's something that God gives. So I feel the need to, yes, we are encouraged to take advantage and like to compete and rise above. And also there is a better, more beautiful vision that is not humanly possible, but is possible through the grace of God. So, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen. You all right over there?
No, Courtney didn't go, so I'm sad.
We ran.
You got away with it, so you took advantage of it.
Yeah, there you go.